Hey guys, Cousin Vinny coming to you on Cinco de Mayo with a quick look at the week ahead and a short watch list towards the end of this video. Note the spiders, we broke above a level here on Friday. We're at all-time highs. We look at the monthly and we zoom out, we can see where we are relative to these three levels here. Also note the comp, where we have this level up here still above us, and we broke above these levels these last 3 months on the NASDAQ. The same goes for the Russell, and if we look at the daily, you can see we're in this boxed base up here, continue to bang around. We just poked our heads above that level on Friday, so I'd be watching for this one to give us a signal one way or another. Looking at the equal weight Rider Tech ETF, we can see that we broke out above this level on Thursday and held that and gapped on Friday. Keep an eye on this sector. This one's leading, looking for a rebound and a surge after this April low. And something to consider because this is an offensive sector and it's taking the lead. It's also mirroring what's happening with the spiders and the comp. So I'd be looking for setups in this sector as well, in this ETF. RCD, the Consumer Discretionary Equal Weight ETF, is also on a tear and a nice uptrend since November, December last year. And we continue to move higher. We gapped on Friday. So between those two ETFs, you could find some setups therein, the components of those particular stocks. Also look at IYR, which is doing very well, continues its trend higher. We have a number of stocks that I will point out towards the end of this video that we have setups in, and setups which continue to move higher, DDR being one of them, which on a box trade setup here 2 weeks ago, we had a nice green candle on Monday, and then it just continued to tear higher. So this was a nice little trade of $1, but I also had options, so that compounded my leverage there. Keep an eye on the Euro US dollar. We have something of an inverted head and shoulders here. We had a box set up. We said that we could see over the last 2 weeks we could see a move higher, which we got. We got another move back down into this box setup here. Okay, we had a nice green candle on Thursday and a move higher on Friday. Just note where your stochastics is if you're going to trade this going into the week. Keep an eye on the Aussie Japanese yen pair if you're thinking of the carry trade. We had a nice move down. We had a box set up here. It's a little bit tougher to read, but we have a lower trend line. We had the level here, pivot that we broke above, and created this fib level, which we hit the 127, bounced off it, came back down, came back to a breakout level, and now we're bouncing again. It's likely that we're going to see the 127 again. Note where MACD is, and we're crossing, and it looks like we're going to head back higher. I'll be watching Freeport McMoran if the Aussie Japanese yen continues to move higher as well. We have this descending channel that we're in. We came off of that lower level, and we have this upper trend line here to deal with. Looks like we're going to have a crossover soon, and the possibility MACD will launch us higher. Stochastics has a little bit more room to run. We're at 75, so keep that in mind. We're just above the 30 period. We could reverse and come back down on this if we had some relative weakness to the spiders. Looking back at IGN, the networking ETF equal weight, we can see the fibs here as well. We pull back to 618, and now we're turning back up. I would expect that this is going to see a trend change as well, and trade that accordingly. Get a crossover here in the very near future. Looks like we're turning here on the EMA, the 10 EMA. Possibility of a sort of ugly inverted head and shoulders being put in here. Left shoulder, head, maybe right shoulder in here. Get a crossover, move higher, come up to this trend line, pull back, and then we have a box set up in that trend change. Okay. If you don't know what a box setup is, you can always go to my site, theclosingprint.com, and just scroll down underneath the weekly video that I usually post here on the front of the site. This video right here covers becoming a better trader using a box setup to trade. Okay, so let's look at some trades inside of this. NTAP is one that comes to mind in the networking sector. You can see that we have this descending channel. EMAs are trending sideways, so I look for this to possibly move higher. Also in the networking sector is Western Digital, which has been on a tear since we last mentioned it a few weeks back. When we broke above this level, came up, then broke above the next level, and are moving higher. Put in a doji on Friday. Maybe this pulls back to create a box setup at some point in the near future. Also, note Seagate where it is presently. I had a nice breakout here of this ugly cup and handle pattern. Okay, we based here and we shot out of this base. Note VeriSign. I'm not sure if it's in this particular ETF or sector networking shares, but it is at highs. Okay, look to see if this breaks out of this base and whether or not MACD moves higher or not. MACD is crossing over and moving higher, so there's a possibility this could embed up here as well on VeriSign. Maybe see these levels up here as a next target. I was looking at a few other things as well. CLF had a nice inverted head and shoulders pattern that was putting in right here. And we also had our first crossover and our first pullback here on Thursday, Friday. We had a green candle. Look for this to move higher out of this base, possibly test this trend line, and then move higher. Note the fibs from this high pivot down to this low pivot, that we have a 382 target here at 25.20 plus or minus. Also like WLT, Walter Energy, which is putting in a nice box base here. Look to see what happens if it's a possibility that this can break out of this base and move higher. I see this area at 21 as a possible area of resistance and another area to short at some point in the near future if it doesn't cross over and break to the upside and change this trend. Okay, so we have a trend line here as well as this box and the possibility of a point or two here to the upside with MACD crossing. Nice volume. And we see where stochastics is. Stochastics could get moving a bit higher here as well. I was also looking at US Steel, which had a nice pattern here. Inverted head and shoulders. We're going to have a crossover. Sorry about that. A crossover occurring probably Monday, in which case this will move higher, possibly come to this area here for resistance at 1920. Put in a couple of candles and move back in this ascending 10 EMA and 30 EMA as it turns and moves to the upside. Looks like we're in a trend change mode presently on US Steel. Note we are overbought and that MACD is continuing to move higher below zero, which is really interesting in that it could provide a lot of strength going into the week on US Steel. STLD also in this space. Steel Dynamics has been moving sideways pretty much in a base up here and looks to be a bit stronger than US Steel, obviously. Continue to watch what happens here with MACD, and the volume looks pretty decent as well as stochastics. AKS Steel has already formed the pattern I'm looking to happen on US Steel. Last week we had a crossover on Wednesday that I pointed out, and watching for MACD to continue higher. This is like where we are right now on US Steel. This continue to move a little bit higher, perhaps. There's a couple of areas that we could see some resistance, and then a pullback to a box trade setup. If you want to wait for that, that's probably a higher probability if we do pull back and then launch off of that level. AMX is also something I've been trading over the past few weeks on these pullbacks, and we had a nice pop into the Kirby area here where there's less resistive volume. We bounced off of the 50% level and closed a little bit lower than the high of the day, but I had a nice trend up on Thursday and Friday. Note MACD is continuing to move higher, so this one could continue to float higher on Monday, Tuesday, depending on what happens with the spiders and the S&P 500 in general. Geron, a cheap biotech stock that had a crossover last week that I pointed out, was looking for this to have a pullback, which we in fact got right here. On Thursday we had a green candle, and then we had a doji on Friday. Nothing to rush out for in terms of buying something, but I'm just watching what this does out of this box setup and this break of trend. Triple D, we talked about this one where we had our box set up last 2 weeks ago. We were looking for that crossover and pullback, which we got. Very nice setup. We put in a hammer on that Monday, and then Tuesday was a good buy signal, and this one ran up a good 7 points from our entry area, and waiting for this to come back to earth a little bit and set up again. This trend change is the first pullback, and we're looking for our second pullback, which will launch us back up to this level up here in the 46, 47 range. So don't be chasing here, obviously, but look for the next pullback into this nice box trade setup at some point. This could come back and test the 10 EMA, or move a little bit further into that zone with 30 period moving higher. This has a lot of volatility in this stock, so come down to the 10, maybe you scale in. HIMX, that was another trade last week, put in a box setup. We had a green candle on Thursday, and that was your signal to go long. And that's $1 higher from where we went into this, which is a pretty decent return considering stochastic is still pointing higher. We could see a break above this level here this week on HIMAX Technologies. Yahoo is another one. We took on these two pullbacks to a box setup, and you can see this pivot here to this high pivot here. The 127 extension, if we break above this, is north of 26, about 26.15 for the next target if we break out of this on Monday, Tuesday, which I think is highly likely. There's a lot of strength in Yahoo. Unipixel is another stock that I'm looking for this to turn, stochastic to turn back up in this box setup. It's been in a nice trend for most of this year so far. We had a nice little pullback last week, and we're starting to get back above the 10 EMA. So watch this one going into week 4, a continuation. Using your 5-minute R1, notice how this is sloping up nice and smooth. If we see that continue to move higher, that could be interesting as an entry going into the week. DDR, another box setup that we've been in for a couple of weeks now. I got all out of this on Thursday and didn't see this move up on Friday. So I'd be looking for this to set up again. in the IYR sector. EAC, Erickson Crane, a construction-related company. Note the box setup that we got last week, and the stochastics is moving sideways, so it's a little bit of a tough signal to go off of, but the EMA is starting to turn back up, the 10 period. So I'd look for this to continue to move higher and possibly target this 2140 area for a likely area a couple of points higher. VHC, this one trades on patents, and this move down was related to the Cisco patent suit, I believe. And we put in this inverted head and shoulders. We have a crossover here, the possibility of a box setup, and a move back up higher. This is a really risky stock, so just keep that in mind. Do some research, read a little bit about VHC, and get comfortable with what you're trading if you decide to take this one on a future box setup here. Also keep an eye on all the sectors in terms of relative strength where money might be rotating in. Note these gap ups on Friday and the strength of trend that continues on IYR, XLU, XLP, and XLV. These have been getting a lot of interest, but also note equal weight ETFs that I pointed out earlier on as far as leading offensive sectors that are starting to move in relation to the spiders, correlated nicely. So this is a candle glance of the indices, okay, the comp, euro, HSI, etc. Keep an eye on these as well next week. Note Japan continues to move higher, the EWJ, on Bank of Japan easing, so I would continue to see this moving higher into the weeks and months ahead. Okay, so that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Benny coming to you from theclosingprint.com as well as Day Trader Bootcamp, where you can come and take the 2-week free trial. Just click on the banner here and it'll take you right to the site. And once again, this is my Twitter and StockTwits handles if you don't have them, and the blog where I post pretty much a synopsis of what I just covered in this video each week as well. So take care, we'll see you in the room, and I hope this helps.